I'm thrilled to dive into the world of Reddit's Amethyst community, where everyday people share their real-life conundrums and moral dilemmas. Tonight, I'll be exploring some of the most fascinating and thought-provoking stories from this vibrant online forum. Am I the butthole for not making any efforts to get my kids to like my mother's boyfriend? My 36 male father passed away when I was 20, and my mother didn't cope well. She got better with time, but she didn't attempt to pursue another relationship until 15 years later. She has been dating Jim for 2 years. I don't hate Jim, but I don't like him either. He drinks a lot. My mother has had to cancel on us several times because he was drunk, has made several offensive jokes to my brother, 43 male, that I didn't appreciate, and is overall a pretty unpleasant person to be around. Still, he seems to genuinely love my mother and makes her happy, so my brother and I don't interfere. One problem I do have with the relationship is that my mother has been trying to get my children, 9 male and 5 female, to form a grandparent bond with Jim. He's also been trying to take on a grandfather role, which neither me nor my wife, 34 female, want for the kids. They don't try to push boundaries too much, but we've had some minor arguments in the past. Anyway, my daughter had her first ever dance recital last December. There was a limit of 4 guests per child. The kids usually ask us to invite one of their grandparents to events like this, but my mother was out of town. I didn't even ask her, and my in-laws were busy. Instead, my daughter invited my brother to join me, my wife, and our son. My mother and Jim came to visit us during the weekend, and she saw pictures from the recital for the first time in a photo album. She asked why my brother was there and not her, and I reminded her she was traveling at the time. She said, "Well, Jim was in town." I'll be honest, we didn't even think of inviting Jim back in December, and neither did my kids. I told my mother that it was my daughter who chose to invite her uncle, and we respected that. Then Jim turned to my daughter and told her that she could invite him next time Grandma wasn't around. My wife chimed in and said she could invite whoever she wanted. After they left, my mother called me. She said she was upset that we weren't making any efforts to welcome Jim into the family, and we were depriving our children of a wonderful grandfather. I told her that we would never force our children to like him or spend time with him if they didn't want to, and that wasn't up for discussion. We ended up having an argument over this before I hung up on her. I spoke with a few family members yesterday who think I'm being too harsh on Jim. So am I the butthole? Now let's check out some of the comments on this post. Not the butthole. I hate when adults try to force kids into having any sort of relationship with other adults. Leave the kids alone. This is how you foster resentful feelings in children and teach them that their feelings and decisions don't matter. Here's the response from OP. My wife had similar problems with some of her family members growing up, so we try to be extra mindful of that. We teach the kids to be kind regardless, but also that they can choose whether they want to be close to someone or not. You're doing great. Your kids will remember how you supported them when they're adults. At the end of the day, you don't have a father-son relationship with Jim, so it's insane to expect a grandfather-grandchild relationship with your kids. I mean, it could happen. My son has a wonderful found grandmother from our church. I'm friends with her, but she and my kid have a bond that's well beyond mine with her. It still shouldn't be demanded of the children, but OP's bond with Jim doesn't necessarily determine his kid's bond. The boundary pushing by Jim is what's doing that. Yes, but it happens naturally. You can't force people to form close bonds. And now for the next story. Am I the butthole for serving hot dogs for dinner? I am not a good cook, and I don't like cooking. I work part-time, gave up full-time work when we had kids, and my husband works full-time as a firefighter, 24 hours on, 48 hours off. Our boys are 4 and 6. We share dinner duties, and honestly he is a way better cook than me, but we are also always trying to find things our boys will eat. Tonight I made hot dogs, and got a look from my husband. He made a joke like, "Wow, nice gourmet dinner." The kids, by the way, were ecstatic. I realize hot dogs are not exactly a nice dinner, but we all sat down together and were happy, and the boys ate all their food. I am still irritated by the look and the sarcasm. Am I the butthole? And now for the next story. Am I the butthole for not paying my friend's gas money? English isn't my native language, so excuse any linguistic mistakes. So, to start from the beginning, my friend last week, suggested we go to a museum with his car. I don't have much interest in museums, but I agreed to it. Fast forward to today, we go to the museum and have fun there. But then, here comes the point of conflict. Out of the blue on the way home, he suddenly tells me that he's broke this month. He doesn't have any money and requests me to cover the gas expense. I firmly told him no. Not because I'm a cheapskate, but the way he went about it was extremely impolite and upsetting to me. If he had told me this in advance, I could have made an informed decision whether I wanted to cover the gas expenses or not. On top of that, it was he who suggested going to the museum in the first frickin' place. I absolutely hate people who says these kind of things out of the blue. Especially when it comes to money, which is very sensitive. I told him that if he was broke, we could have gone to the museum another day, or I could have made an informed decision. I also told him that he shouldn't live beyond his means. He accused me of not being there for friends in need. I wasn't a true friend, etc. But I would love to hear your perspectives. Am I the butthole? And now for the next story. Am I the butthole for not letting my daughter help my niece bake? So I, 23 female, have a 4-year-old daughter, Mia, and a 14-year-old niece, Sophie. Sophie and her parents live a few minutes away, so she visits pretty often. Sophie likes to bake, sometimes for fun, and sometimes to sell. We let her come over while the house is empty so she can have a clear and quiet place to bake. This time though, she was on short notice to make cupcakes for her friend's sister's birthday, so we were all at home this time. My toddler, Mia, loves to help me in the kitchen whenever I cook, and she got very excited when she saw Sophie in there, baking alone. Mia kept asking if she could help, and I told her, "Not this time, sweetheart. I need to let Sophie do this herself." She was disappointed, but I thought it was important for Sophie to feel independent, and frankly, I didn't think Mia was old enough to safely handle baking on her own. It can be messy, and I didn't want to have to clean it. Well, my fiancé came home shortly after, and immediately saw Mia's meltdown. He asked me why I didn't let Mia help, and I explained my reasoning. Sophie is older, more capable of managing in the kitchen, without needing supervision, and she wasn't baking only for fun. She was taking them to a party, and needed to get this done quickly. My fiancé was really upset with me, saying that Sophie should let Mia help, and she should do this because we are always letting her use our kitchen, and that Mia never helps, so it's not like we're constantly asking her to let Mia bake, and she can sacrifice this one time. I don't think that's fair to Sophie. She's a baker, not a babysitter. But now he's sulking, and says I'm being unfair to Mia by not letting her participate. Am I wrong to not let her help? Edit. I forgot to add, Sophie prefers to bake by herself. That's why she comes over when the house is empty. Now let's check out some of the comments on this post. Not the butthole online. If your fiancé wants your child to bake, then she can bake something with her. You do not have to give a child everything that they want. Your fiancé is setting your child up for future disappointment and to be entitled. Your daughter will survive not baking with your niece. You did the right thing. The sulking fianc is a guy. OP is female. There's no reason fianc can't bake with Mia. OP has to supervise 2 4-year-olds. And one of them is a pouty grown man. Not the butthole. Did anyone ask Sophia if she wanted help from a 4-year-old when she was in a rush? I mean, what if someone hot falls on the 4-year-old? Because Sophia is in a rush and not trying to teach or get help? Exactly this. Has anyone even thought to ask Sophia if she wants a 4-year-old to help? That should be the catalyst to this. Why is there even a debate? If the 17-year-old wants the help, then okay. If not, then the 4-year-old doesn't help. Why is this so hard? Sophie usually times her baking projects for when no one's in the house. And this time was only different, because she had a really short time scale to get everything sorted. I'm pretty sure she didn't want to have to babysit a 4-year-old during that, and she shouldn't have to be put in the position of turning down the opportunity for babysitting whilst on a time limit. Especially when she owes the people asking her that question a favor, and might feel pressured to say yes. Also, pretty sure she would have heard at least part of the discussion going on outside the kitchen area. She could easily have stepped outside for a second and said no, it's fine. I'd love to have Mia with me if it were true. The fact she didn't says to me that she needed her baking time to be a solo effort, and was probably very grateful to OO for backing her up without needing to be questioned. Sophie is actually 14 years old, not 17. Either way, not the butthole. And now for the next story. Am I the butthole for always keeping my phone on D&D? Over the past year, I've noticed a lot of my friends getting really mad that I keep my phone on silent 207. They gone as far as to call it rude, unempathetic, and selfish. Although I suppose what they are really mad about is the fact that I don't respond instantly but rather 5 hours later, or the next day. I understand the frustration, but trust me, I don't think I'm Hollywood or anything. The reason I keep my phone on D&D is BC I'm super busy with classes and school as a STEM major. I can't really afford to be distracted by a notification while studying. It also helps me keep my focus during class since my phone isn't going off and doesn't give me any notifications. I also leave it on at night so that I don't get woken up to notifications during the rest of the day, though I keep it on out of habit. Some of my closer friends have exclaimed that they feel hurt by my poor response times. I explained the situation to them, and they told me that I could make a focus group in which everything else but their messages would be blocked out. I tried it, and it didn't work. Instead of blocking out the rest of my messages, it required my phone to be off D&D. So I still got vibrations for the rest of the notifications. Also, not to mention, but they are the ones who would distract me with a message lol, not Apple News. So in a way, letting their messages get through would defeat the purpose. A few months have passed since then, and I come to find now that one of my friends is saying that I'm unempathetic BC. She exclaimed that it hurt her, offered her solution, focus group, and yet I still did nothing to fix it. Look, I understand where she is coming from, but this is my life she's talking about. And I think it's kind of weird to demand my attention whenever you want it. I also think it's kind of rude that after I exclaim that I have this BC of school and that it's not changing, she still proceeds to bring it up. Like, I'm sorry, but my grades dictate my future, and I'm not gonna let them drop BC of you. It gets harsh, but I really do value my schoolwork a lot, and she's aware of this. On an overarching issue, sometimes I may take up to 3 days to respond. It's not that I don't have the downtime, it's that when I do get time off sometimes, I just want to relax. I see where she could be frustrated with that BC. It really has nothing to do with D&D. But still, I think it's weird that society thinks it's okay to demand that a person have open communications 247. I don't want to live consumed with social media some days, so I might take a break. IDK AITA. Like and subscribe for more awesome daily Reddit content. And don't forget to hit the bell to get notified when I upload new videos.